like to tell you 3 stories. 3 stories tonight. The first one is found in the book of Jonah. Book of Jonah, chapter 1, verse 1. Chapter 1, verse 1. If you haven't guessed, the book of Jonah is about one character. The guy's name is Jonah. Have you ever heard of somebody that belly aches? You know where I think they got that? I know where they got that word. It had to be from Jonah. He was not just a belly acher, he was in a belly aching. Amen. I think he is the original belly acher. In the book of Jonah, it starts out, the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amalek. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. All the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God. And they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone below deck, where he had laid down and fell into a deep sleep. The captain went to him and said, "How can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us, so that we will not perish." Then the sailors said to each other, "Come, let us cast lots and find out who is responsible for this calamity." They cast lots, and the lots fell on Jonah. So they asked him, "Tell us, who is responsible for making all this trouble for us? What kind of work do you do? Where do you come from? What is your country? From what people are you?" He answered, "I'm a Hebrew, and I'm the trouble. And I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." This terrified them, and they asked, "What have you done?" They knew he was running away from the Lord, because he had already told them so. The sea was getting rougher and rougher, and so they asked him, "What should we do with you to make the sea calm down for us so we don't die?" And listen to this. "Pick me up and throw me into the sea," he replied, "and it will become calm. I know that it is my fault that this great storm has come upon you." Who else was in that boat besides those guys? Jonah. This great turmoil and all this trouble hadn't just come upon them. It had come upon who else? Jonah. Instead, the men did their best to row back to the land, and they could not, and the sea grew even wilder than before. Then they cried out to the Lord, "Please, Lord, do not let us die for taking this man's life." How would you like to be standing there and hear him cry out that? "Please, Lord, forgive me, I'm fixing to kill this guy." They just pointed me. "Do not let us die for taking this man's life. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man. For you, Lord, have done as you pleased." Then they took Jonah and threw him overboard, in the raging sea grew calm. At this the men greatly feared the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him. Now the Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. I'm going to pray. Father, I just pray, God, that your will be done. God, help us to look to you and to listen to you. And Lord Jesus, I pray, God, that as I speak these words that I know you put on my heart, God, I pray, Lord Jesus, you would help each one of us, Lord God, to take these things into our hearts and our lives and our minds. In Jesus' name, amen. You know, on Sunday morning, I preached about being out of balance. But what I didn't bring up in the middle of that message, and I should have probably told the rest of the story, is sometimes, you know what? Sometimes when you get your life out of balance, things go horribly wrong before you get it straightened out. I told you I was going to tell you 3 stories. I'm hoping I can get through all 3 of them because the other 2 stories are like Jonah's. And like Jonah's was a true story. In case you didn't know, chapter 2, Jonah does some belly aching of his own. While he's in the belly of the fish, guess what, Brother Scott? He starts going, now I'm ready to go to Nineveh. It says he has seaweed wrapped around his neck. Can you imagine what it's like being in the stomach of a big fish? Can you imagine the smell? Can you imagine the feeling? Being you're on the bottom of the ocean, running, swimming around, and you're in the belly of this fish. Can I tell you something? I cannot, Brother Dakota, I cannot for the life of me figure out why do people have to get into the belly of the fish before they start asking God to help them. You know what's really sad, Sister Norma? I know so many people, and I talk to so many people, that they know God. I know so many people, and I talk to so many of them, that are in the midst of being in the belly of the fish. You're saying, oh, they ain't in the belly. Well, when you hear these other 2 stories, maybe you'll understand what I'm saying. But sometimes we don't call on God. We don't even look to God. We'll sit there. Maybe some of us have been in church. And I'll tell you what. I'm going to tell you the first story because it goes with this very one. Yesterday, I had the pleasure and the privilege, as your pastor, I got to help he actually was a young man. He was actually my age, 53. And it was kind of reflective, Brother Carey. He was sitting there and looking at a man, and when he tells me he's 53, and I'm thinking, I thought he was older than that. But it was because of life he lived. And what it was is I got called. I think it was the night before, wasn't it? It was Monday night. I got a call, and a lady in a hospital. The sheriff department couldn't even find out who to call, couldn't figure out what to do. They picked this man up in Rideau, and he was trying to get back. I'll tell you what actually was going on, because I got to speak with him as I drove him around, and I ended up helping him out. He'd been picked up in Rideau, and he was coming back from Pennsylvania. What happened was he was a longshore fisherman, or deep sea fisherman, and that's all he'd done most of his life, and he was trying to get back to San Diego. His mom had died, which was his only family in the whole world, in Pennsylvania. And he'd gone back to help bury her and, get things in order and stuff. And while he was there, he got sick. And he ended up having to go to the hospital. And you know what really was surprising? He said, I was never sick a day in my life. He said, I've always been super healthy. Never caught colds, never caught... here I work out in the deep sea, and he said, He said, I never get sick. He said, I've always been just healthy as a horse. They take me to the hospital, having a bunch of problems, not feeling good at all. They find I have stage 4 stomach cancer. And I'm going to die just pretty quick. He said, I'm just trying to get back home to San Diego to just what he knows there, I guess he's got friends there that he's fished with and stuff, but he's walking back, and every once in a while when it gets lethal on him, they have to drain him. And because he's like this, he can't even stay in homeless shelters because this stuff that they drain off him is contagious. And he's like a contagion that's always with him. And as we're driving along, and I'm talking to this man, and he actually had, it's called Jesus is Calling. It's a daily devotional, and he had his Bible. He's been reading. Guess what? Guess what? Now that he is dying, and they told him he probably won't see the new year. Do you know what it's like to sit with somebody like that? And you're thinking to yourself, God, how can I help this man? He's been given a death sentence. But can I tell you something? That as we're driving along there, he starts opening up to me. And guess what one of the things he tells me? My message Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon at the nursing home, he starts talking about those very things. I said, you know what? I just preached on it. And I'm able to speak to his heart because what God had me preach Sunday morning. Then he starts telling me some, and I said, he said, and this is where, you remember Sunday afternoon I preached on hardship sometimes. They're there for a reason. And God disciplines us for a reason. This man, you know what he said from his own mouth? Now listen to me. Jonah, if you want to read it for yourself. How did Jonah end up in the belly of the fish? Because Jonah didn't do what God asked him to do. Jonah was doing, when he got on that ship and was headed to another port, whose idea was that? Jonah's. Not God's. Jonah's. I told you I was going to tell you 3 stories. Here's the second story. This man, you know what he said from his own mouth? And that's what made me tell him. I said, yes, sometimes our lives get out of balance. And I told him the message I was preaching Sunday morning. But he said, you know what? I've known God. I just kept wanting to do things my way. That's what I'm quoting you verbatim for what he said. I knew what God wanted, but I kept trying to do things my way instead of what God wanted me to do. But can I tell you something? As sad as it is, because his name is James Newcomer. And I'd really like y'all to be praying for him. I'm praying that God saves him miraculously. But can I tell you, sometimes when I almost pray those prayers sometimes, Brother Jared, reluctantly. Now listen to me, you're going to think I'm hard, but I'm not trying to be hard. I don't know that I want him to be saved from cancer. Because I'm afraid if God saves him, he'll do like so many people I've seen God touch. That he'll soon forget who saved him and who rescued him and go back to the life of doing it his way instead of God's way. Right now, he's doing it God's way. Right now, he's reading and praying to God all day long. He finds comfort. He said, and you know what his words are? Now, I don't want to leave you discouraged. I want you to know what he said to me. He said, it's kind of a bad thing, good thing. He said, yeah, maybe I'm dying. He said, but I guess I'm fixing to go to heaven. And I told him, I said, brother, I got to be honest with you. I said, I look forward to that day too. I said, there's something special in your heart when you realize this isn't your home. And that, you know what? If I live, that's great. If I don't, that's great. I'm going to be with Jesus. So many times we want to do it our way. And sometimes, Brother Kyle, the only way God can get our attention. I had a preacher, and I'll be honest with you, I prayed this way, even for our own family. I had a preacher tell me one time, he said, you know what? You need to pray, God, whatever it takes to save them, but you better realize when you say that, what you're saying. Maybe it takes stage 4 stomach cancer to get them saved. Now you're saying that's awful. But I read in the Bible it says that it's better to enter into heaven with one eye and pluck that other one out than to walk through life and have them both. Or go into hell with both eyes, I'm sorry. And it's better to cut your arm off or cut your hand off than it is and go into heaven with one hand than it is to enter into hell with both hands. And I think, Brother Lynn, it's a lot better to enter into heaven with stage 4 stomach cancer than to die and go to hell and be completely healthy. Now that's me.
Amen.
I'm saying this to tell you that your way. Would you mind pulling up Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12? I want you all to read this one to me instead of reading it to you. Y'all need some help, somebody. There is a way that appears to be right, but the ends, it leads to death. In the King James, can you bring that up in the King James Version? Because I like the way it says it. Because it says, there is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. You might think you know best. You might think you're pretty sharp. But if you are not asking for God's guidance, your way is leading where? I didn't write that. It's going to lead to death. You know what's sad to me, Brother Scott? You know what else this man said? He said there was a time when he wanted to go to church, and he was married to a woman, and they had 2 kids, but they weren't his kids, but he loved them like they were his own. And he made a statement that makes sense. I want you to listen to this. He said, I wanted to take my kids to church, but she wouldn't let them go. So I'd have to go by myself. She said, no, they're not going to church. He said, you're not making a decision for your soul, you're making a decision for their soul. Can I tell you that when you choose your own way, you're not only choosing your death, you're probably choosing your family's death. I want you to think about that. I want you to be thinking about that, kids, you older ones, teenagers that are in here. You teenagers that think that life's a big game. I want you to realize you have been put on this earth for the same reason I've been put on this earth. To preach the gospel. To spread the good news. To be a light. This little light is not just a song we sing, it's the way we live. And some of you teenagers, these little ones are watching you. Some of you 12-year-olds, them 8-year-olds are watching you. The life you are living is not your own. It's been bought with a price. Amen? And if you want to live your life the way you want to, you're going to end up, and I can tell you for a fact you're going to end up like this, because I buried my brother for the same reasons. He was a great guy. But he lived his life the way he wanted to. And that was one of the last conversations he ever had with me. I partied like I wanted to, now I'm paying the price. Died a young man. Hepatitis from doing drugs. Yeah. You can live your life the way you want to, and I'm telling you right there, it's not just something I read on a wall, Sister Loma. I have lived that. I have seen that. I have preached funerals for people that lived their life the way they wanted to. All right, I'm not going to leave it on a terrible note. Can I read you something my sister Garnet sent to me? I sent her something the other day, and so she sent me back. My sister, in case you don't know it, she took off and she lived a pretty wild life. Chased by the law many times. Had to take her kids one time because they were out. She'd gotten thrown in jail I don't know how many times. Her kids have been raised up with some of the craziest people on the planet Earth, druggies. She did cocaine for 25 years, and the reason the law was always chasing her, cocaine's a very expensive habit. She was constantly embezzling or stealing or cheating or whatever she had to do to get her high. Well, she's been clean now. How many years has it been now, babe? Has it been 7 years? She's been clean 7 years, but she's still doing it her own way. You know what I'm talking about? But recently, my sister got diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and it was a particular kind of thyroid cancer. And most people that get this particular kind of thyroid cancer, they die not long afterwards, because it gets into their system and it goes throughout their whole body. And can you imagine? I asked you earlier if you can imagine what it was like to be married and holding that baby. Can you imagine standing in the, ladies? Can you imagine being in the doctor's office and you've not been feeling good? Something's going on, you got a lump on your throat or something. And they tell you, you have this particular type of thyroid cancer. And it's very aggressive, very, you might not make it through this. She's 2 years younger than me, so she actually just turned 50 when she got the diagnosis that she had thyroid cancer. And for weeks, months, she was so scared, so worried. I kept telling her, we're praying for you. I believe for you. I went with her to the hospital. And so somebody had sent me, I think Sister Felicia had sent me something about the father on the stump. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I'm going to read that. If y'all don't mind, if you give me just 5 more minutes, I don't need a whole lot of time. I'm almost done. In conclusion.
You want me to pull it up?
I think I've got it on my phone still. I think I still have it where you sent it. A father takes his son into the forest, blindfolds him, and leaves him alone. Let me see if I can spread this open a little bit. He is required, now listen to this. He is required to sit on the stump the whole night and not remove the blindfold until the rays of the morning sun shine through it. He cannot cry out for help to anyone. Once he survives the night, he is a man. He cannot tell the other boys of the experience because each lad must come to manhood in his own way. The boy is naturally terrified. He can hear all kinds of noises. Wild beasts must surely be all around him. Maybe even some humans might do him harm. The wind blew in the grass and the earth, and it shook his stump. But he sat still. Never removing the blindfold, it would be the only way he could become a man. Finally, after a horrific night, the sun appears and he removes his blindfold. It was then that he discovered his father sitting on the stump next to him. He had been at watch the entire night, protecting his son from all harm. We too are never alone. Even when we don't know it, God is watching over us, sitting on the stump beside us. When troubles come, all we have to do is reach out to him. If not, if you like this, pass it on. If not, you took off the blindfold too soon. The moral of the story, just because you can't see God doesn't mean he's not there.